We spend a ton of time talking about being book smart, right? Getting good grades, having a high IQ. But what about that other kind of smart? Have you ever met someone who just gets people, who can stay totally calm in a crisis, or knows exactly what you're feeling before you even say it? Well, that's the other kind of smart. And honestly, it might be the most important kind of all. What we're talking about here is emotional intelligence, or EQ. So you've got your book smarts on one side, that's your IQ, all about logic, academic stuff. It's what gets you through school. But then you've got life smarts on the other side, your EQ, self-awareness, managing relationships, keeping your own emotions in check. This is what gets you through life. It's a huge piece of the puzzle that we often forget about. So what is EQ, really? If we boil it all down, it's pretty simple. It's the ability to manage three key things: your mind, your reactions, and your relationships. And look, it's not just about being nice. It's deeper than that. It's about being aware, being in the driver's seat of your emotions, and being intentional with how you interact with the world. All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to break this all down by looking at 4 core mindsets: the reactive mind, the secure mind, the resilient mind, and the curious mind. And then we'll pull it all together at the end. Okay, first up, the reactive mind. This is all about what happens in that tiny little gap, that split second between something happening to you and how you actually choose to respond. So check this out. What's the low EQ response? It's instant. It's impulsive. Somebody says something and bam, you lash out. You get offended. You let anger take the wheel. But a person with high EQ has this secret weapon. It's the pause. Just a beat. That 1 second is everything. It's just enough time to process what you're feeling, to think, and then to respond carefully instead of just reacting. That is a game changer. And here's another huge difference. Think about conversations. A person with lower EQ is kind of just waiting for their turn to talk. They might dominate the conversation, only hearing the words. But someone with high EQ, they're like a detective. They practice something called active observation. They're reading the room, noticing the shift in someone's tone, understanding the emotion that's hiding behind the actual words being said.
Yeah, this really nails it. You're not just sitting there quietly. You're actually listening on a much deeper level. It's like you're decoding the entire emotional message, not just the words on the surface. That is a serious skill. All right, so that brings us to our next pillar, the secure mind. This one is all about your internal foundation, where your sense of self-worth really comes from. This is a big one, especially in the world we live in today, which is so obsessed with likes and shares and getting that public praise. People with high EQ have learned how to generate their own validation from the inside. They just don't need that constant stream of approval from others to feel good about who they are. There's a great term for this: secure self-esteem. Think of it as a quiet confidence that isn't fragile. It doesn't shatter when someone criticizes you, but it also doesn't get overinflated with praise. It's stable because your happiness and your identity, well, they come from within. Next up, let's talk about the resilient mind. Because let's be real, life is absolutely guaranteed to throw challenges your way. What really matters is how you handle them. So this really comes down to what's called your locus of control. It's basically the story you tell yourself. The low EQ story is, life happens to me. Things are always someone else's fault. Bad luck, a bad boss, you name it. It's a victim mindset. But the high EQ story is totally different. It's, I am responsible for my actions. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about owning your power to focus on solutions instead of problems. And that sense of responsibility leads right into another crucial habit: emotional endurance. You know how when things go wrong, and they always do, some people just melt down? They panic, get angry, shut down. But people with high EQ have this quiet strength. They can handle disappointment and stress without completely breaking down. I love this because it just captures it perfectly. Their emotional strength is silent. It's not about being a robot with no feelings. It's about maintaining your internal balance, even when the world outside is pure chaos. That really is a superpower. Finally, let's talk about our last pillar, the curious mind. This is where our emotions connect directly to how we learn and how we interact with new ideas. Now, this might sound a little strange, but one of the smartest habits you can have is to doubt yourself sometimes. It's called intellectual humility. It's having the self-awareness to admit when you're wrong, to know the limits of your own knowledge, and, this is a big one, to genuinely listen to opposing views without getting defensive.
This kind of humility is the polar opposite of a very common cognitive bias that I'm sure you've seen in action. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And this chart just shows it perfectly. The Dunning-Kruger effect is when people with very little ability at something wildly overestimate how good they are. Their confidence is sky high, but their actual competence is way down low. People with high EQ and intellectual humility are the exact opposite. They're realistic about their skills, which keeps them open to actually learning more.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. So how do we put all these habits together into a practical toolkit that you can actually use every day?
Let's do a quickfire recap. For your reactive mind, the key is to pause and observe. For your secure mind, it's about learning to self-validate instead of always seeking approval. For your resilient mind, it's taking responsibility instead of placing blame. And for your curious mind, it's staying humble and open to learning. These are the absolute pillars of high emotional intelligence. So if you recognize these habits in yourself, that pausing, that observing, that relying on your own validation, you're not just mature, you're emotionally gifted. It truly is a superpower in today's world. So the only question left is, how are you going to use it?